The spotlight blinded Elena as she finished her final movement, chest heaving, sweat gleaming on her dark skin. The Nexus nightclub fell silent. That terrible, suffocating silence that every performer dreads. Then, from the VIP section shrouded in darkness, a single person began to clap. Slow. Deliberate. The sound echoed through the empty club like a verdict. "Bring her to my office." A voice commanded in Korean, cold and absolute. The stage manager appeared, his face pale. "Miss Morales, Mr. Park wants to see you. Top floor. Now. Hello besties, Happy New Year. Welcome to Afro-Korean Stories. Please like, share and subscribe. Also turn on the notification button so you won't miss out on more intense stories like this. Elena's best friend Sophia had warned her about this audition. "Nexus isn't just a club," she'd said nervously. "The owner is connected to some dangerous people. If he takes an interest in you, Elena, it won't just be about your dancing." As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse office, Elena checked her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked powerful in her gold and black performance outfit, her curls wild, her brown eyes defiant. She'd come to Seoul to make something of herself, to prove everyone wrong who'd said she was crazy to leave Brazil. She wouldn't let some rich club owner intimidate her. The elevator doors opened. A man stood behind a massive desk, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Tall, broad-shouldered, devastating in an all-black suit. When he turned to face her, Elena's breath caught. He was the most beautiful man she'd ever seen. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to cut through every defense she'd ever built. Hair styled with precision that spoke of money and power. A thin scar traced across his right hand, visible when he gestured to the chair across from him. "Miss Morales. Seat." It wasn't a request. Elena sat, lifting her chin, meeting his gaze directly. She'd learned early that men like this respected strength, not submission. "Your performance was extraordinary," he said, his English flawless with just a hint of Korean accent. "You move like fire." "Thank you. I'm not flattering you. I'm stating fact." He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, those intense eyes never leaving hers. "I could use that kind of fire in my establishment. I want you as Nexus's resident performer. Your own show 3 times a week. Full creative control. 12 million won per week to start." Elena's mind raced. 12 million won was more than she made in 2 months teaching dance classes in Itaewon. This was everything she'd wanted, everything she'd crossed an ocean to find. "That's generous," she said carefully. "What's the catch?" His lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. "Smart. The catch is loyalty. You perform only for Nexus. You represent my brand. And you never ask questions about my other business interests." There it was. The confirmation that Nexus was just the legitimate face of something darker. She should walk away. She should thank him politely and leave. But Elena thought of her cramped studio apartment in Hongdae, of calling her mother, and having to lie about how well she was doing, of the dream that had brought her across the world. "I'm a dancer, not entertainment," she said firmly. "I won't be propositioned by your clients or expected to do anything beyond perform." Something shifted in his expression. A flicker of respect. "Agreed. Your body is your own. Anyone who disrespects that will answer to me personally." The way he said it, cold and absolute, should have frightened her. Instead, heat curled low in her belly. She extended her hand. "Then we have a deal, Mr. Park." He took her hand, his grip firm and warm, and held it a moment longer than necessary. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a touch so light she might have imagined it. "Call me Daehan. We'll be working closely together." The touch sent electricity up her arm. When she left his office 20 minutes later with a contract to review and his private number in her phone, Elena's hands were shaking. She told herself it was excitement about the opportunity. She told herself the way her body had responded to his proximity meant nothing. She told herself she was in complete control. She was already lying to herself. The next day, Elena went to a traditional market in Insadong, trying to clear her head and make sense of the contract she'd read 5 times already. The offer was legitimate, surprisingly fair, with none of the exploitative clauses she'd feared. Daehan, despite the danger that clung to him like expensive cologne, had been professional. She should sign it. She would sign it. She was examining a display of traditional Korean fans when someone bumped into her, nearly knocking her over. Strong hands caught her waist, steadying her. "I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Elena looked up into a face that made her heart stop. For a dizzying moment, she thought Daehan had followed her here. But no. This man smiled, warm and genuine, his whole demeanor open in a way Daehan's had never been. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a leather jacket, his hair slightly longer and less severely styled. "I'm fine," she managed, stepping back, though his hands lingered on her waist a moment before releasing her. "You're not Korean," he observed, his smile widening. "Brazilian. How did you?" "You're Portuguese," he said, nodding at the vendor she'd been speaking to. "I spent a summer in Rio. I'd recognize that accent anywhere. I'm Jivon." They talked. And talked. Jiwon was charming and funny, asking her questions about Sao Paulo, about her dance, about her experience in Seoul. He bought her hadiak from a street vendor, laughing when the sweet syrup dripped down her chin. He walked with her through the market, and Elena found herself relaxing in a way she hadn't since arriving in Korea. Here was someone who saw her, who was interested in her world, who didn't make her feel foreign. When light rain started to fall, misting rather than pouring, Jiwon pulled her under a cherry blossom tree. Pink petals floated down around them, sticking to her hair. "I know this is fast," he said softly, reaching up to gently brush a petal from her cheek. "But I really want to see you again. Can I have your number?" Elena hesitated. She wasn't the type for casual dating. And something about Jiwon felt dangerous in a completely different way than Daehan had. Daehan was obviously dangerous. Jiwon was dangerous because he made her want to be reckless. "I'm not looking for games," she said. "I don't have time for." He kissed her. Soft at first, questioning, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, when instead she grabbed his jacket and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened. His hand tangled in her curls, his other arm wrapping around her waist, pulling her flush against him. He tasted like the sweet rice cake they'd shared, and he kissed like a man who knew exactly what he wanted. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena's carefully constructed walls were cracking. "Still think I'm playing games?" Jiwon asked, his forehead resting against hers. She gave him her number. For 2 weeks, Elena lived in a beautiful, complicated duality. She signed Daehan's contract and started rehearsals at Nexus. 3 evenings a week, she worked with him on her show, and those sessions were torture in the most exquisite way. Daehan watched her like a predator, his attention absolute and unwavering. He noticed everything, the way she favored her left ankle when tired, the specific songs that made her movement more fluid, the exact moment when she needed water or a break even before she did. He was demanding but fair, pushing her to be better while respecting her artistic vision. And the tension between them built like a gathering storm. He'd adjust her posture with clinical precision, his hands on her waist or shoulders, and the touch would burn through her clothes. She'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Hunger mixed with something darker, something possessive. They didn't talk about anything personal. She knew nothing about him beyond his name and his obvious wealth and power. But the silence between them spoke volumes. Every glance, every careful touch, a conversation they weren't ready to have out loud. During the day she saw Jiwon. And Jiwon was everything Daehan wasn't. He was open, affectionate, pulling her into his world with infectious enthusiasm. He took her to his favorite restaurants, taught her Korean phrases, laughed at her pronunciation. They went to Noribang and he sang off-key, not caring who heard. They walked along the Han River at sunset, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest. The physical attraction was immediate and electric. Make-out sessions that left them both frustrated and wanting more. His hands in her hair, her legs wrapped around his waist, gasping against walls and dark corners, pulling apart before they went too far because Elena needed to be sure. Needed to know this was real. "You're thinking too much," Jiwon murmured one evening, his lips trailing down her neck as they sat in his car overlooking the city. His hands slid under her shirt, palm hot against her stomach. "One of us should," she gasped, arching into his touch despite her words. "Let me make you feel good," he breathed against her ear. "Stop thinking for once. Just feel." It would be so easy to surrender, to let him take her to his apartment like he'd been suggesting. But something held her back. Some instinct she couldn't name. She didn't tell Jaewon about Daehan. She didn't tell Daehan about Jaewon. In her mind, they existed in separate worlds. Mr. Park was her boss, professional despite the tension. Jaewon was the man she was dating, the one who made her laugh and feel alive in this foreign city. They had nothing to do with each other. She was spectacularly, dangerously wrong. Her opening night at Nexus was triumphant. The show was sold out, the audience captivated, and Elena felt like she was finally becoming who she'd always wanted to be. After the performance, Daehan surprised her by opening a bottle of expensive champagne in his office. "To your success," he said, handing her a glass, his fingers brushing hers. "Our success," she corrected, flushed with adrenaline and happiness. "You pushed me to be better. You were already extraordinary. I simply provided the platform." He moved closer, setting down his glass. "Elena." The way he said her name, low and rough, made heat pool in her belly. "Yes. I want to be clear about something." He reached up slowly, giving her time to move away, and tucked a curl behind her ear. What I feel when I look at you, it's not professional. It hasn't been professional since you walked into my office." Her breath caught. "Daehan, I'm not asking for anything tonight. I'm a patient man when something is worth waiting for." His thumb traced her jawline. "But I want you to know, Elena Morales, I intend to have you. Not just your talent. You." He was so close she could feel his body heat, could see the slight dilation of his pupils. Every instinct screamed at her to close the distance, to find out what kissing that stern mouth would feel like. But Jaewon's face flashed in her mind. His smile, his warmth, the way he'd looked at her yesterday when he'd said he was falling for her. "I need to go," she whispered. Daehan stepped back immediately, his expression closing off into professional politeness. So quickly she wondered if she'd imagined the moment. "Of course. Excellent work tonight." She fled, her heart pounding, guilt and desire warring inside her. The next day, Jaewon took her to a charity gala. "I want to show you off," he'd said, buying her a stunning dress, black silk that hugged her curves and made her feel like royalty. She'd protested the expense, but he'd kissed her objections away, telling her she deserved beautiful things. The gala was at a 5-star hotel, full of Seoul's elite. Elena felt out of place despite the dress, aware of the stares, some admiring, some judgmental. Jaewon kept his hand on the small of her back, proprietary and comforting. "There are some people I need to greet," he said, leading her into the main ballroom. "Business associates. Smile and look beautiful, which you're already doing." They entered the ballroom and Elena's world tilted on its axis. Across the room, talking to a group of men in expensive suits, stood Daehan. And next to him, identical in every physical way, was Jaewon. No, not Jaewon. Jaewon was beside her. But Jaewon was also over there, standing next to Daehan, wearing the same face, the same build, the same everything. Twins. The room spun. Her hand clutched Jaewon's arm, and he looked down at her, followed her gaze, and went completely still. "Elena," he started, his voice tight. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The man across the room, the one who looked exactly like Jaewon, turned and saw them. His expression shifted from surprise to something darker. He said something to Daehan, and Daehan turned. Their eyes met across the ballroom, and Daehan's face, usually so controlled, showed clear shock, then understanding, then something that might have been dark amusement. He knew. Looking at his twin with Elena on his arm, Daehan knew exactly who she was to Jaewon. And Jaewon, staring at his brother, was clearly realizing the same thing. "I think I'm going to be sick," Elena whispered. "Let me explain," Jaewon said urgently, his hand tightening on her waist. "Explain what? That you're twins? That you've both been, what? Sharing me? Was this some kind of sick game?" Her voice was rising, people starting to stare. "Not here," Jaewon pleaded. "Please, Elena, not here." Daehan was moving toward them, cutting through the crowd with purpose. Elena didn't wait. She pulled away from Jaewon and ran. Years of dance making her fast even in heels. She heard Jaewon call her name, heard footsteps following, But she didn't stop until she reached the balcony, shoving through the doors into the cold night air. She gripped the railing, gulping air, trying to make sense of the impossible. Twins. They were twins. Every intimate moment with Jaewon, every charged interaction with Daehan. They'd been what? Both pursuing the same woman? Did they know? Was this intentional? The balcony doors opened behind her. She whirled, expecting Jaewon. But both of them stepped out. Side by side, the resemblance was shocking and perfect. The same height, the same face, the same broad shoulders. Only their expressions differed. Jaewon's open distress versus Daehan's controlled composure, and the way they dressed. Daehan's formal perfection against Jaewon's slightly rumpled elegance. "Don't come closer," she said, her voice shaking with anger and betrayal and something else. Something she didn't want to name. Jaewon ignored her, moving forward with his hands up in surrender. "I didn't know. I swear to God, Elena, I didn't know my brother was seeing you until 3 days ago." 3 days? She laughed bitterly. "You've known for 3 days and didn't think to mention it?" "I was trying to figure out how to tell you," Jaewon said desperately. "I knew if I just blurted it out, you'd react exactly like this." She turned to Daehan, who leaned against the railing with infuriating calm. "And you? When did you know?" 5 days ago, he admitted. "I saw a photo on Jaewon's phone. You at the Han River. I recognized the bracelet I'd seen you wearing at rehearsal." "So you both knew and neither of you said anything. Would you have listened?" Daehan asked quietly. "Or would you have run like you're planning to do right now?" "I have every right to run. You both lied to me." "We didn't lie," Jaewon said. "I never asked if you were seeing anyone else. You never told me about your job at Nexus. We've been dating for 2 weeks, Elena. Were we exclusive? Did we define this?" The words hit like a slap because he was right. They'd never had that conversation. She'd assumed, but assumption wasn't commitment. "And you?" She turned back to Daehan. "You're my boss. You said you wanted me, but you never actually pursued it. So what right do you have to be angry?" "I'm not angry," Daehan said, and his voice was soft. "Dangerous. I'm fascinated." Fascinated. He pushed off the railing, moving toward her with predatory grace. Jaewon stepped aside, letting his brother approach. "Do you want to know what I thought when I saw you with my brother? When I realized the woman I've been obsessing over for weeks was also the woman who's made Jaewon happier than I've seen him in years." She couldn't speak, couldn't move as Daehan stopped in front of her. "I thought, of course it would be the same woman. We've shared everything our entire lives. The same womb, the same face, the same destiny. Why would the woman who completes us be any different?" "Completes you?" Her voice came out as a whisper. "You don't even know me." "I know you," Daehan said. "I know you bite your bottom lip when you're concentrating. I know you're afraid of losing control. I know you see yourself as someone who has to be strong all the time, who can't afford weakness. I know you're lonely in Seoul, missing home, but too proud to admit it didn't meet your expectations. I know all of this because I see you, Elena." "And I know you," Jaewon added, coming to stand beside her, not touching but close enough that she felt his warmth. "I know you laugh when you're nervous. I know you hate kimchi but pretend to like it to be polite. I know you want to surrender but you're terrified of what that means. I know you feel things deeply but you've been hurt before, so you protect yourself." She was shaking, their words cutting through every defense. "Stop. Tell me you don't feel it with me," Daehan said, lifting her chin to meet his eyes. "Tell me that when I touch you, your body doesn't respond. Tell me you don't come alive when you're with me," Jaewon added, his hand sliding down her arm. "Tell me I haven't made you feel things you've never felt before." "This is insane," she breathed. "You're brothers. Twins. This isn't how it works." "Then how does it work?" Daehan asked. "You choose him or me?" The thought of choosing, of losing either of them, sent panic through her chest. Which was insane. She barely knew them. Except she did know them. In 2 weeks, they'd both gotten under her skin in different ways, filled different needs she hadn't even known she had. "What if," Jaewon said carefully, glancing at his brother. "What if you didn't have to choose?" Elena stepped back, needing distance from both of them to think. What are you suggesting? The twins exchanged a look, one of those wordless communications that identical siblings supposedly shared. Daehan nodded slightly, and Jaewon turned back to her. We share everything, Jaewon said. We always have. We run the business together. We live together. We complete each other's thoughts. We've never competed over anything because we've never needed to. What one of us has, the other has. I'm not a possession, Elena said sharply. No, Daehan agreed. You're not. You're a woman who deserves to have everything she needs. And what if what you need is both of us? The words hung in the air. Impossible and tempting. Elena's mind raced. A relationship with both of them? That was. She couldn't even process it. You're talking about what? Polyamory? A throuple? I can't. Why not? Daehan asked. Because society says so? You left your entire life in Brazil to dance in Seoul, because you refused to let society dictate your dreams. You perform Brazilian dance in Korea and make them respect it. You don't let anyone else's rules define you. So why start now? This is different. How? Because it was. Because this was about intimacy and emotion and, God, the thought of being with both of them, having both of them. It made her feel things that terrified her. With Daehan, she felt challenged, seen, pushed to be more. With Jaewon, she felt joy, freedom, permission to be soft. Together, they offered everything she'd never admitted she wanted. But it was wrong, wasn't it? I need time, she said finally. I need to think. Take all the time you need, Daehan said, pulling a card from his pocket and writing something on the back. This is our private address. When you're ready to talk, really talk, come find us. Jaewon looked like he wanted to argue, to push, but Daehan put a hand on his shoulder. Another silent communication passed between them, and Jaewon nodded reluctantly. I meant what I said, Jaewon told her, his voice raw. I've never felt this way about anyone. Neither has he, and my brother doesn't do feelings. You're special, Elena. Don't run from something special because it doesn't look like what you expected. They left her there on the balcony. Two halves of an impossible whole. And Elena pressed her hand to her racing heart, and wondered what the hell she was going to do. Word count, 4,157. She didn't go to them that night. Or the next day. She called in sick to rehearsal, stayed in her apartment, and tried to think rationally. But rationality had no place in what she felt. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them. Daehan's intense gaze. Jaewon's brilliant smile. The way they both looked at her on that balcony like she was precious and necessary and wanted. She'd never been wanted like that. Her ex-boyfriend in Sao Paulo had wanted her to be smaller, quieter, more conventional. Her family loved her but didn't understand her dreams. In Seoul, she'd been a novelty, sometimes admired but often othered. But the twins, they saw all of her. The strength and the vulnerability, the ambition and the loneliness. And they wanted her anyway. They wanted her because of those things, not despite them. On the third day, she went to her dance studio, the small one where she taught classes, and danced until her body ached. Movement had always been how she processed emotions too big for words. And as she danced, she realized something. She wanted them. Both of them. She'd been trying to choose since the moment on the balcony, weighing Daehan's intensity against Jaewon's warmth. And the truth was she didn't want to choose. She wanted Daehan's challenges and Jaewon's laughter. She wanted Daehan's control and Jaewon's spontaneity. She wanted both of them. And the only thing stopping her was fear of what other people would think. But when had she ever lived for other people's approval? She pulled out her phone and texted the number on Daehan's card. *Songpa Warehouse. Midnight. Both of you. The warehouse was one she'd seen referenced in her contract, listed as Nexus's storage facility. It was in an industrial area, dark and isolated at night. When Elena arrived at midnight, her heart hammering, she found it unlocked. Inside was a vast space, mostly empty except for some furniture covered in cloth and a loft area above, accessed by metal stairs. Jaewon appeared from the shadows first, making her jump. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept, his hair messy, his usually bright eyes shadowed with worry. You came, he said, relief flooding his voice. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't sure. He moved closer but didn't touch her, like he was afraid she'd break. Elena, these last 3 days have been hell. I kept picking up my phone to call you, but Daehan said I needed to give you space. Where is he? Here. Daehan's voice came from the loft above. He appeared at the railing, looking down at them, and even from a distance, she felt the impact of his gaze. You asked for both of us. So here we are. He descended the stairs with measured steps, and then they were there. The three of them forming a triangle in the empty warehouse, the air thick with tension and possibility. Elena took a breath, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. I've spent 3 days trying to talk myself out of this, listing all the reasons why it's impossible, why I should choose one of you or walk away from both. I made pro and con lists. I called my best friend back home. Though I didn't tell her the whole truth because how do you explain this? And Daehan asked, his voice carefully neutral. And I realized I've spent my whole life doing what makes sense. I studied business in university because it was practical, even though I wanted to study dance. I stayed with a boyfriend who was wrong for me because leaving would have disappointed my family. I followed all the rules, all the expectations, and I was miserable. She looked at Jaewon, then Daehan, then back again. It wasn't until I broke free, until I chose my own path, that I started to live. You asked me on that balcony to tell you I don't feel it with both of you. I can't. I feel everything with both of you. Jaewon's breath hitched, hope dawning on his face. Daehan's expression remained controlled, but she saw the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched at his sides. Daehan, you make me want to be better, stronger, she continued, her voice gaining strength. You see potential in me I didn't know I had. You challenge me and frustrate me and make me feel powerful. And Jaewon, you make me remember how to breathe. You give me joy and light and permission to be soft. You make me feel beautiful and wanted and alive. She walked to the center, standing between them. Separately, you're both incredible. Together, you're everything I've never let myself want. So yes. Yes to this, whatever this is. Yes to trying something that doesn't have a roadmap. Yes to being greedy and wanting both of you. She stood between them, heart racing. I want both of you in my life, in my heart. I want both of you. Heat rose to her cheeks, but she pushed through. Inside of me. Metaphorically and literally. I want all of this. If you'll have me. Jaewon moved first, closing the distance in 3 strides, cupping her face with both hands. If we'll have you? Elena, I've been yours since you smiled at me at that market. I'm so gone for you it's embarrassing. He kissed her, and it was different from before. No hesitation, no holding back. His tongue swept into her mouth, his hands sliding into her hair, and she gasped against his lips, her body igniting instantly. She'd missed this. Missed him. 3 days feeling like 3 years. Then Daehan was behind her, his chest against her back, his hands spanning her waist. His lips brushed her ear, sending shivers down her spine. Do you understand what you're agreeing to? We don't do anything halfway. If you're ours, you're completely ours. No doubts, no running. She reached back, threading her fingers through his hair, pulling his mouth to her neck. Then claim me. Both of you. What happened next was a blur of sensation and emotion. Jaewon's mouth on hers while Daehan marked her neck with kisses and bites. Hands everywhere, learning her body, mapping her curves. They moved her to the loft, where a surprisingly comfortable space had been set up. Clearly prepared for this possibility. They laid her down on soft blankets, and for a moment, the twins just looked at her, their identical faces showing different expressions of hunger and wonder. You're sure? Daehan asked one last time, even as his hands worked the buttons of her shirt. I've never been more sure of anything, she breathed. They took their time, which surprised her. She'd expected rushed and desperate, but instead they worshipped her. Jaewon kissed every inch of newly exposed skin while Daehan whispered in her ear, telling her how beautiful she was, how long he'd imagined this. They worked in tandem, intuitive to each other's movements, and the coordination should have been strange, but instead was intoxicating. When they finally made her theirs, it was everything. Daehan's control and precision. Jaewon's passion and tenderness. Both of them focused entirely on her pleasure, on making her feel cherished and desired and whole. She shattered between them, crying out their names, and felt something in her chest crack open. Something she'd kept locked away for so long. Afterwards, she lay between them, their arms wrapped around her, her head on Jaewon's chest while Daehan traced patterns on her hip. No regrets? Jaewon asked softly, pressing a kiss to her hair. None, she said and meant it. You? She asked, looking up at both of them. Are you joking? Jaewon laughed. I'm pretty sure I just had the best night of my life. Agreed, Daehan murmured, and there was a warmth in his voice she'd never heard before. Elena smiled, feeling safe and wanted and exactly where she was supposed to be. She let herself drift, sated and happy. She should have known happiness in their world came with a price. If you're still here, you're probably wondering how 3 people navigate this kind of relationship in the real world. Could you do it? Would you do it? Drop a comment below if you need part 2. Also let me know. Team Daehan, Team Jaewon, or Team both. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? You've already invested this much time in Elena's story. Don't you want to see what happens when her new relationship faces its first real test? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on the next part.